I think it was around the age of 10 or 11 that I started to find some guys on TV attractive. There was nothing sexual about this attraction. I wasn't even conscious of it at first. It simply felt good to look at the bodies of some guys. I would look, experience a brief moment of appreciation for their appearance, and then would quickly become distracted with something else. Later, when I was around 13, I became aware I had this desire and realized that the attraction towards other guys had grown from a mere appreciation for their looks to a sense of awe for their beauty. And as I grew older, this experience of awe became more common. It also became clear to me that other guys weren't drawn towards masculine beauty like I was. Again, let me be clear here, this desire was not sexual. When I witnessed male beauty, I found I admired those men and had a desire to be like them and one of them. It felt like they were everything I wanted to be. I was drawn to them by desire because I saw that their bodies were good. Back then, I didn't know what kind of desire this was. Was it a desire for friendship, for sex, for beauty? I didn't know. No one ever taught me how to tell the difference between these desires, much less what to do with any kind of attraction towards my own sex. All I had ever heard was that if you looked too closely at the body of another guy for more than half a second, it meant you were gay. And because I didn't understand my feelings, I assumed that must be it. I must have been gay. I didn't know where to put my desire for masculine beauty, so I boxed it up within myself together with my sexual desires. And over time, those two very different desires became confused with one another and started to feel like the same thing. As a consequence, throughout my teenage years, whenever I encountered male beauty, I would panic. I wish another guy had pulled me aside, sat me down, and said, "Hey, if you're in the locker room and you steal a shy look at the kid with the muscles, big deal. You think you're unusual? Every single boy in that locker room has done the same. They still do. You just don't notice it. Being interested in the bodies of other guys is a normal and healthy part of figuring out what it means to be a guy." If someone had said that to me, it would have changed my world. I wouldn't have confused my sexual desires with the desire for beauty. I wouldn't have felt like having this desire for beauty somehow kept me from being one of the guys. And I wouldn't have spent most of my life hating myself for desiring something good. But no one gave me that talk, and I became lost in my sea of desires. Was this desire for same-sex beauty good? Was it good for me? I didn't know. I didn't have the answers to those questions. But I do have them now. Let's talk about it. The two truths which were the most helpful in answering these questions were one, that it is good to have good desires for good things, and two, that beauty is one of the good things we should desire. In fact, beauty is not just good, it is very good, because no matter where it is found, beauty is a reflection of God. And the beauty of the human body, whether that body is our sex or the opposite sex, is part of that reflection. And for humans, the beauty unique to the human body is more important for us to experience than the beauty of most other things. This beauty allows us to better know ourselves by giving us a fuller idea of what we ought to be. And the beauty of our own sex does this most of all. Imagine if there was an artist whose job it was to do the best they could to create a statue of a man, but who rarely or never compared the statue to other men. Or imagine if the artist did look at men, but didn't see their beauty. How flawed and bent the final work would be. But this is how we can end up if we are deprived of same-sex beauty. We are both the artist and the statue. Each one of us are artists commissioned by God to make ourselves the best versions of ourselves we can be. And we need models to do that. The church gives us saints as beautiful models for our souls, but since we are also our bodies, we need beautiful models for our bodies as well. We need healthy exposure to beautiful, non-sexual examples of the kind of thing we were made to be. If we are deprived of same-sex beauty, we won't receive an understanding of ourselves that only the beauty of our kind can teach us. So the beauty of our own sex is good, very good. However, while it's important to ask the question, is this thing good? It's often more important to ask the question, is this thing good for me? Even though physical beauty is a very good thing, it can still be dangerous for us to be around it if our desires for it are unhealthy. I've struggled with gluttony for most of my life. When I eat, it's difficult to avoid eating too much. Because of this, it often isn't good for me to be around lots of food. I don't have a firm control over my desires when I'm around it. Of course, this doesn't mean that the food is bad. It just means I'm not desiring it the right way. In a similar way, when we encounter beautiful people, it can be unhealthy for us to be around them if we don't have control over our desires. If we're not careful, when we see a beautiful person, we can end up experiencing an unhealthy response such as envy, lust, or self-hate. But similar to my experience with food, these reactions don't mean that the beauty we encounter is bad. It just means we're not desiring it the right way. Thankfully, our desires don't have to stay this way. Now, we could easily have a whole video series on envy, lust, or self-hate, so we'll have to save those topics for later videos. For now, I'll briefly mention 4 general ways we can improve our perception of physical beauty. 1. When you see someone beautiful, thank God for their beauty. Gratitude is one of the easiest ways to get out of our heads and make room for God's perspective. Sharing God's perspective puts things in context, and this gratitude and perspective keeps us from reducing people merely to their physical appearance. When we see someone beautiful, we should readily and happily say, "How beautiful is your dwelling place, O Lord," even if that dwelling place is someone of our own sex. Even then, it's good for us to rejoice in that beauty. Number 2, instead of reducing people to their physical appearances, take a step back and look for the beauty of the whole person. Look for the beauty in their virtues, their personality, their thoughts, in every part of them. A good habit we can practice when we encounter someone physically beautiful is to imagine how we would act towards them if they suddenly lost their good looks, if they were old, smelly, and wrinkly. When we do this, if we find that we lose all desire to draw close to them, it means that we weren't interested in who they were, but instead we're only interested in what they could do for us or how they made us feel. We should be drawn more to their soul than to their body. If we're only interested in their looks, then we might as well be looking at a corpse, because that's what we make of them in our minds when we see nothing but their flesh. However, looking past someone's appearance and imagining how they will look when they're old or dead in the grave is also an effective way of improving our perception of beauty. This is tip number 3. This practice helps us improve our perception of beauty by reminding us that in this life, all physical beauty is temporary. Remember, man, that thou art dust, and to dust thou shalt return. There are many people alive today who believe that the experience of pleasure is the most important thing there is. And because beauty causes pleasure, they also think that physical beauty determines the worth or value of people. Some treat it like it's the only thing that gives people value. But this is the perspective of those who see no soul, have no faith, believe in no God, and instead worship flesh. If it is true that the sole measure of our worth is our physical beauty, then when our beauty fades, we will quickly find we have no reason to continue living. Remembering that death is coming for us helps us to realize how foolish it is to value too greatly those things which pass away. Instead, it encourages us to value those things that don't lose their value in time, such as virtue, truth, and the source of all beauty. Finally, number 4. The most important way we can improve our perception of the beautiful is by nurturing within ourselves a desire for Jesus in the Eucharist. Of course, there are 1,000 different ways that encountering Jesus can improve our perception of beauty, but encountering him in the Eucharist is particularly effective. Often when our perception of human beauty is flawed or bent, we see the body instead of the person. But when we adore God in the most holy Eucharist, even though he is physically present with us, he teaches us to know his person without being able to see the appearance of his body. It's his perfect solution to the problem, and is one of his ways of teaching us to love and desire other people the way he loves and desires us, completely and totally, body and soul. He always sees our beauty, even when we think we don't have any. And he wants us to be able to delight in beauty no matter where we find it. Even if that beauty isn't found in the soul or the body of our own sex. All is good that God has made, and nothing he has made is to be rejected. If we are men, we should be able to take a good long look at the naked statue of David by Michelangelo and be delighted by every detail. And if we are women, we should be able to take a long look at the ancient Roman statue of the Three Graces and be equally delighted. If we find that we cannot or will not appreciate the physical beauty of our own sex, or if we are repelled at the idea, then that means there's some part of us that is missing the order and goodness needed to appreciate it. And if we're Catholic, this lack of appreciation can be the source of unnecessary and harmful division between us Catholics and those outside the church. This non-sexual appreciation for same-sex beauty is something which is often caught up in the experience of many people with LGBT desires. And in my experience, rather than readily allowing same-sex beauty to be a source of common ground with people like me, Catholics have been hesitant to affirm its good. And this hesitance makes the church, which is represented by her members, look foolish, because it makes her look like she denies something good and true, which of course is not the case. Perhaps one of the reasons Catholics are often so hesitant here is because they don't realize how good this beauty is. Perhaps it never occurred to them to think about it. Or maybe they think it doesn't need to be talked about because same-sex beauty is just a small good compared to other, greater, more important goods. And maybe that's the truth. But even if the beauty of our own sex is a relatively small good in the grand scheme of things, like with all beautiful things, God can and does use it to reach our minds and our hearts. He has ordered the beauty of His creation in such a way that when we encounter it, it can sanctify us. It can move us towards a greater knowledge of ourselves, a greater, more complete ability to see others for who they are, and even a greater love for Him and all that He has made. Until next time, I'm Aaron Brown. I love you very much. And take heart. Don't let yourself be satisfied with anything less than the greater love. Hey there! I'm so happy you took the time to watch this video. If you liked it, please be sure to click like, subscribe, turn on notifications so that you'll know when the next video comes out, and please consider sharing this video. And if you believe that what we're doing here is worthwhile and that there should be more content like this out there, then please support us at greaterlove.locals.com. The more support we can get from people like you, the more videos like this we'll be able to produce. But most of all, please support us with your prayers, that God may give us the wisdom, prudence, and courage we need to spread the truth. See you in the next one.